All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, I know we already did a big segment on this with David Dan, but I feel really compelled to drill down into one of the worst things that President Biden has done as president so far. As we discussed in our last show, Biden issued an executive order earlier this week invoking the Defense Production Act to help spur the production of solar panels, while simultaneously declaring that companies who are very likely importing illegal Chinese-made solar panels designed to circumvent U.S. anti-dumping laws will not be subject to tariffs for at least the next 2 years. The executive order is extraordinary because it effectively is saying that Biden knows the Commerce Department is investigating whether the entire U.S. solar supply chain is a Chinese dupe, and that even though he knows, and that they will probably almost certainly find out that they are, that the solar installers will not have to pay tariffs in the meantime. And because of a so-called natural emergency, which he simply has just decided is going on, he says, I'm just going to suspend those tariffs, even if the investigation finds that they are illegally dumped products on these companies. He's trying to cover this up by saying, yeah, I'm going to invoke the Defense Production Act to increase production of U.S. solar panels. But guess what? The entire reason that U.S. solar manufacturing asked the Commerce Department to investigate this, as is their right under U.S. law, is because they're being undercut by these Chinese transshippers via Southeast Asia. The CCP is deliberately subsidizing the cost of these panels to destroy any foreign, read American, competition. So even if you spur U.S. industry, nobody is going to buy it as long as the Chinese panels are cheaper. The Chinese are much smarter than us. They see clearly. The neoliberal establishment in this country is literally brain dead. They have themselves committed, as we see in California, New York, and others, to fake green energy targets no matter the cost. They have decided, for idiotic ideological reasons, nuclear power is out of the question. So they only have two options, wind and solar. They're going all in on both, despite the fact that the solar panels manufactured in Asia produce filthy byproducts. They need dirty coal in order to make them, and slave labor is almost certainly involved somewhere in the supply chain. Their green targets are the only things they care about in this situation. And really think about the consequences. Biden is deliberately allowing major population states like California, New York, and others to move forward with Chinese-made solar panels at the expense of natural gas and nuclear power. I'm not saying natural gas is great, but guess what? We have a ton of it in our freaking ground if anything goes south. The administration is signing us up for a future where we're nearly 100% dependent on China to manufacture the predominant future source of power to those grids. What could go wrong? Did we not just live through a pandemic and with high inflation right now as a result of horrific supply shocks, which are a direct result of globalization? The priority has to be the things that we have here, within our borders, in our ground, or something that we can make without the rest of the world. There's only one clean power source that fits that criteria. You guessed it, it's called nuclear. Yet, when the Treasury Secretary of the United States presents her alternative for fossil fuels, what do you think that she says?
Given the global nature of these markets, it's virtually impossible for us to insulate ourselves from shocks like the ones that are occurring in Russia that move global oil prices. And look, over the medium term, the critical thing is that we become more dependent on the wind and the sun that are not subject to geopolitical influences.
Every time. It's like a boomer mind disease that has swept this country and makes them think that low capacity, unreliable power sources, which we can't manufacture here, are somehow the future. It shows how fundamentally unserious these people are. And it also raises a really interesting question. Biden, when he wants to, can use executive power to spur energy production. He just did it in a massive gift to the China lobby. He was willing to issue an executive order that illegally circumvents U.S. law, specifically to bail out Chinese solar companies for ideological reasons related to power. So why will he not issue an executive order concerning anything else? As I laid out in a previous monologue, Biden has the ability to limit exports of U.S. crude to drop the price here at home. He has the ability, under the insane standard, to suspend the Jones Act for when it relates to oil in between U.S. ports. He has the ability to even use the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, to circumvent Wall Street's block on new drilling. All of those things he does not even need Congress for. And yet, he does not do them. So in effect, here's what's he telling us. It's perfectly fine that we're all paying $5 a gallon nationally on average. He won't lift a finger to help, but for the Chinese solar companies, yeah, he'll go to the mat for that one. One of the most important maxims of politics is that what you choose to spend your time on is what's actually important to you. And I know it sounds stupid, but really think about it. Politicians are always saying something along the lines of, this is my #1 priority, or I'm taking a stand against X, or this is something I'm gonna focus on in office. The only way that you know if it's real is if they actually do anything about it. On this one, he's only acted in one area of energy production. And if anything, it makes us worse off. What I hate about this is how partisan brainworms are rotting this country. Yeah, Biden and the green people, they are legitimate idiots who are fine with the idea of high gas and Chinese solar as long as it makes them feel better. But our whole country is suffering under the weight of bipartisan idiocy. Texas, my home state, not home of the Green New Deal, is seeing record power demand with high temperatures flexing the grid in ways we've never seen before. Texas gets 47% of its power from natural gas, 20% from coal, 20% from wind, 10% nuclear, only 1% solar. So if the Texas grid goes down this summer, it's not going to be obvious that it's the Green New Deal's fault. It's actually on fossil fuel promisers who said it would always give us everything we need. Look, even if the grid is intact over the summer, guess what? Natural gas is priced at the global market. It's sky high right now. People are going to get hosed to a degree they are not used to on their electrical bills. I end with that because it encompasses the issue. We legitimately have a serious problem, and we need serious people to look at the actual choke points and not let ideology cloud their decisions. Because when ideology takes over, it leads to two sides of the same twisted coin. California, where they're likely to face blackouts for being too green, and Texas, where they could have blackouts for not being green enough. Going down both roads, not going to save us. Only honesty will. And this administration, they're telling us plainly, they're both not honest, and honestly, they're not very smart. I think that's really what it gets to with me, Crystal. With these solar things, it drives me.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.